In this video, we want to consider um, some open points for discussion with regards to a full HR ingest from the Fusion Dev3 environment to the Worktribe TEST4 environment. And there's a list of questions here in green. There are 12 we can see here, and they're represented in the tabs as we go along. So we'll have a tabular experience in considering these questions as we go along on things to think about, whether we feel they're resolved or not before an ingest takes place, and whether they're relevant or not also should be considered. So this isn't to stop an HR ingest, it's just to consider some of the findings when querying the data from a BIP report perspective. Once that's been ingested from Fusion and being the middle way to then being ingested further downstream to Worktribe. So the starting point for this consideration has been this BIP report. This is a full BIP report running the Dev3 environment, as you see on the bottom there, on this particular date, 22nd. And it was analysis of some of this data. And I'm not saying that it's complete, there's more analysis that needs to be done as well. And we see that in the points section in yellow there at the bottom. We need to consider more lookups as part of this analysis, which will be an ongoing consideration as well. So let's jump into some of these points then. So we have point number 1 at the top, which is for the full HR ingest, do we expect SID and person number to be switched around as we saw in the forced BIP report? Because as of now, they're unchanged. So what that means is, and if I go over to tab number 1, and we saw this in a previous video when we had a much smaller report output of 4 lines, which was the forced user report, BIP report. And it was only people on those lookup that were considered, and the SID and the person number, which we're representing in yellow here, they were switched around. So as we have it right now, SID means SID and person number means person number. Do we want these switched around from a BIP report perspective when we do an HR ingest, or are we happy as we are? Is that okay? Okay, so that's point number 1 to mull and think about. And if you're a person who's thinking of discussing, it's a good time to pause and maybe go over to the next point when you're ready. Okay, so that's point number 1. If we have a look at point number 2, can we check spine values are there as expected for fixed salary? So we want to check that when we look at fixed salary, that the value says spine, and we can see them for all users who are on fixed salary. So that's our second point here. So let's go over to tab number 2, find spine fixed salary. So again, taking the BIP report, and in this case, looking at grade, and with grade filtering on fixed. And once filtered on fixed, we can see that every fixed salary had an associated spine value, and the number of records was 39, and that should be the expected outcome. Previous to this, we saw no value as for salary. That's now been added in, so that should be fine. So we shouldn't have an issue here. It's just confirming the point. So that's it for spine fixed salary. Okay, let's go back over to our points. Now let's look at point number 3 here. And do we have any historic spine values and current spine values for any employee? So an employee might show 2 lines in the BIP report, and that's because we've seen that before. So we just want to make sure, by way of a pre-validation, that we don't see it in this instance. So if I go over to number 3, spine historic, and if we, on column A, look for duplicate values, it also shows in column J for person number. If we go into spine, all these values here are unique for each of our users, and so that's all this is really considering. Now we may see some duplicate users here, but that's for other reasons, which may be for national insurance and pension contributions, but we'll come on to that. That's a different story. All we want to consider here is column Q and spine. So if we said for any duplicate users, is that because of the consequence of an historic and a current spine? That is not the case. So we don't see that. So that's why we've got orange here. No historical spine values in DEV3. So this is not an issue in DEV3. And just to note that we have identified that before, where we saw the spine column. And so I'm using this old record from another instance. I won't say old, it's almost like a week ago, where we did see in other environments here 2 lines, a 14 and an 18, where I'm circling for the same user over here for Callum Shaw. And I was bringing over historic and current spines. And then I did a spot check on Sergio Fernandez, because what I saw was 2 values. I saw a value when I ran the report now, which just shows me Fernandez is got a spine of 21. And when I looked at, I'll call it a bad report from another place, not DEV3, I saw 21 and 28. And I thought, well, maybe that's wrong. Maybe it should be 28, not 21. So I did a spot check on the individual record. And I can see here he used to have 28, now has got 21. So it's fine. It's not an issue. But it's just nice to get that confidence, because you sort of see big numbers, small numbers, and you don't know what to think about them, what's right, what's wrong. So go to the system is the answer for everything. So that, yeah, the green conclusion, spine value is correct on a spot check. And secondly, if we're answering the question, there were no historic spine values, so this is not an issue. So this is our point number 3. Okay, let's go to point number 4. A little bit coming on the back of what we just saw. So point number 4 is, let me just make the whole thing pink, right. Any multiple national insurance numbers for people. So do we see any multiple lines for national insurance number for people, where we see 2 lines in a BIP report? So this is our point number 4. So we'll come over and we're going to do it in conjunction with point number 5, just because they're kind of grouped up together. So are there any lines where we see multiple national insurance number for people? And are there any occasions where we see multiple lines for people having multiple pensions, like a USS and SOL? What is coming into the BIP report? Because we know what will be ingested into Worktribe will be 1 national insurance number, 1 pension. So if they've got 2 lines, both of those are not going to go ingested into Worktribe. Now, the functionality of Worktribe does allow the ingest of multiple pensions, but that's a configuration issue, process consideration from Worktribe in a larger question. I don't want to answer that here, but that availability is down there. Currently, on the records that we see within Worktribe, we just see individual records. We see records for people with just singular pensions. We don't see multiple pensions, so that's a point of note. So let's have a look at multiple national insurance and pension contributions for points 4 and 5 then. So we've got it down here, grouped together, points 4 and 5 for pension and national insurance contributions. And again, by grouping on duplicate values for login, and we get the same for person number, which is why they're in this light pink color, we identify 2 groupings of yellow and pink. And yellow, we're representing national insurance contributions, where we have duplicate values for the same person. So you might have Dennis Dawley, who's got NI contributions for A and C. So there are 2 that are coming across from a national insurance contribution perspective. So that is something to consider. Also, something to consider is it's 1, 2, 3, it's 4 people. So, if you want to be a pious person, you can say, oh, there should be 0. Well, if you want to be a numbers person, well, it's 4 out of many, many thousand. So, how material is it? But I'm not arguing the materiality. I'm just arguing the accuracy of what we should and shouldn't see. Okay, and the bottom here, if I look at Paul Beck, we can see 2 pension contributions for SOL and USS, for example. So we see in this grouping more than 2 pensions. And we know we can only ingest one value into Worktribe. So what do? And over here for national insurance contributions, there are more than 2 national insurance contributions, and we can only ingest one value into Worktribe. So the question is, what do we do? So we can either run it and see what we get into Worktribe and then reverse engineer and see what went through. Or should we know up front what should go through, and maybe why were things ingested in Worktribe the way they are? And are there people who've got multiple pensions that didn't come onto the BIP report for whatever reasons, and these came through? So we don't know. So that's something to consider. So these are the points for 4 and 5 for pension and national insurance contributions. Let's go over to our next point, which is point 6 now. So should log on from the BIP report in the very first column A be the same as the forced value report BIP reports, another BIP report that we've run for forced users, and for there we changed log on, so anything after the email address at xxxx whatever imperial.com doesn't come through. So does that change need to be made before ingest for completion? Do we need to do that? Does it make a difference? So I'll come over to point number 6 and let's talk about that. So login, so that's our first column. So that's the peach colored values here. And what we're saying is instead of, and I'll just make it a bit bigger so you can see it, instead of AA15 at ic.acdk, it's going to be a case of, and let me just go into this record. It'll be a case of take that out, and that's what you're going to see going forward. And don't know, I think it tried to create an email because I clicked it. Yeah. So are we going to check? The idea is, do we need to change login to have that value all the way down? Well, so this is arguing the word of completion. It's nice and complete to do that. Before we did that in our forced user before, and I'm over here at the top and the bottom here, on the bottom here is what we did have for our forced users. It made no difference to the login. It made no difference to the login, whether you've got it written AA15 or AA15 at ic.acdk. So it's like a completion issue, just to be complete to have it, but functionally it makes no difference. But do we want to do that from a BIP report? Do you want to bring in those coding differences? And you could argue as much as you can get up front now and do up front now and test it and show that it works now. It points more towards maybe you should. But if there's great urgency just to crowbar these things in, just to get it in and deal with this later, fine, we can kick the can down the road. So a decision either way would need to be considered for with regards to login. So that's our point on login. Let me go over to our next point now, which is pay band. And pay band level 5 for professor and senior research fellow. So this originated the level 5 argument from a custom lookup that we've got within Oracle Fusion for pay band eligibility for 2 particular grades. So it was professor and pay band, and there was no level 5 available. Sorry, the words professor and senior research fellow weren't available from a list of values to select. So level 5 was chosen just to force these people in. So that's what did happen. And what has happened in level 5 for pay band now is we see the lookup, just as we said, for eligible pay band, and this is for senior research fellow, and it points to level 5, and that's what we've got in the lookup now. And we see the same for professor for the eligible pay band, and that also points to level 5, and there's 2 professors in here for level 5. And where it says grade level 5, in those list of values, there is not a word for professor, and there is not a word for senior research fellow. Now that's either because those grades have now changed and they represent something else, and we're not sure what that is. So we're just saying level 5 to get these people in. So it's just something that we need to consider going forward, that we understand what it should be for professors and senior research fellows going forward. So today, do we see senior research fellows in the DEV3 environment? Well, from job title, we do. So when we say pay band, we do see that the senior research fellows are in. And again, if we do pay band and job title, professor is there as well. So on the job title, if you click down the list of values, you'll see senior research fellow and you'll see professor. So they are in there. What was interesting was on grade itself, there was not a level 5 there in that list of values. So that was interesting. Okay. And so we need to think about going forward. What's the point of this is being able to understand what would we replace the grade level 5 with in the instance for senior research fellow, and also in the instance of professor, what should be the correct value for the pay band lookup. So that's the sort of exam question here. Does it stop an ingest? No, we get the people in, but academically that's not right to say level 5. What should be the right profession there to put in? That's we're getting them in, but it's not perfect. So that's the idea. And just another point on this, where when looking at the professors that came out, you see a couple of reds here. We did notice for a couple of these guys that there were duplicate national insurance contributions as well. So it kind of carries on from the previous argument. And we see Dennis Dooley again and Jonathan Morris again. They were on the previous one. So just a little bit of carryover. We can just see these things combining now and get a better idea of the integration and interactions of these different lookups in the data to make it more meaningful. Right, okay, let's go to our next one, which is number 8, which is departments. So do the list of departments allowable for Worktribe eligibility look suitable from a reconciliation point of view? And do the departments in Fusion feel like they're representable for the departments that we've got in Worktribe? So there are departments that are set up in HCM. There are departments, that's globally for the university, and then there'll be departments that are set up specifically eligible for costing from a Worktribe perspective, and it's those departments we want to get an idea of. Does that look reasonable from a Worktribe point of view? So I can present the departments here, but maybe it will need to be carried on a bit further with some more analysis within Worktribe that looks reasonable. And a little bit of follow on from our next point as well is the Fusion org tree representable of the allowable departments in Worktribe. Let's do one at a time. So number 8 is list of departments allowable for Worktribe eligibility. So let's come over to number 8. So we've got our own custom reports that we've written in DEV3, where we've got department name and inclusion for costs from a Worktribe perspective. And there's 160 departments in this report, so that's interesting. And what we'll go on to, does that look reasonable is the question. And if somebody's scrolling through the video, I'll just give you a full listing there so you get a view of it. I'll also attach this Excel in the group chat. And then note onto our next thing that we're going to talk about is the Fusion org tree has got 158 departments, so quite close to this. So it's a little bit answering the question. So, well, from a department within Fusion perspective, yes, but also, is this representative of the departments we have in Worktribe is the open question. So that's the sort of wanting to get to a better conclusion on that. Where are we in the project? Do we feel from a Worktribe perspective we're reconciling the departments we have here within Fusion to what we have in Worktribe? So that's a question for the business and Worktribe people to answer for that one, please. Okay, next point, number 9. Let's get you Pink as well. So in the Fusion org tree, is that representative of allowable departments in Worktribe? So it's kind of a little bit asking the same question. So this is the org tree within Fusion when exported to Excel is here. And if I take column G and H for all the different departments, and I've kind of done it over here in this screenshot, I see a total of 159, and I'm using that number to reconcile previous work that we've done in this area, and you can't see it, but that says 159, that says 159 as well. So the org tree in Dev3 looks numbers wise good, but again, just asking that question, that we see departments within Fusion eligible for Worktribe. We see departments on the org tree within Fusion, and this is an export to Excel. Do we have that representation also within Worktribe as well? So that follows on that particular question. Right, our next point is number 10, and I'll bring that up over here. And for some of our fixed salary people that we looked at a bit earlier, are there any zero values? And you could argue, who cares? That's not my business. You know, as long as we've got people who are on fixed salary and it says fixed, I don't care whether it's got zero money, £1, £2, £100 million, whatever it is. As long as that's not my thing, but we've got to end to end the solution a little bit and show a bit of consideration. So, fixed salary values. Are there any zero values? So I did see one in a not a Dev3 environment, in another environment, and I saw several. In this environment, let's see what we found. So point number 10 on fixed salary. So we see we have one line here. It's the red line. So we've got Mr. Chen over here. And what we see is, and I've coloured it yellow just to make the point, he's got a salary of 0. And when I look in the Fusion record, I can see there's no salary to display. So you can say, okay, fine, that's it. There was nothing in Fusion, it's fine. Or we can just take it a bit further and take it to the business, and we did. And we see in a bit more detail that the employee was on a fixed salary, and the immediate understanding was it wasn't, there was no linking to an employee. So they were saying there was no eligible salary for migration. So you could then argue, well, you've gone to ISIS, isn't that enough? But we just took it a stage further just to get a better view regarding a data cleansing issue. So we went to Stephen, who came back with it was removed because the person was on nil pay for maternity in ISIS, and the salary is reinstated later. So, okay, fine. And we're giving more confidence it'll be fine in the next cycle. So at least we have an understanding of we've got people on fixed salary and 0, and we can reconcile it back to ISIS and also from a business process point of view of what the actual life of this person was. So it's not just it's a null value, don't worry about it. We've end-to-ended it here in a nice way. So that's good understanding. Okay, so I think that completes the point on 0 salaries. Okay, next one is are the number of people who are archived from this BIP report material? So what's the number of people that were archived? And you see a number here, 38, which is, I'm going to say good, because there have been times when we've seen everyone being archived. So we've seen that in the thousands. So we've got it down to a smaller point now, which is good. So we've come over a lot of issues. So we've come up to point number 11 in archived employees. So if we go to the archive flag column for the BIP report and just look at it from a yes perspective, and then see how many we've got, and you see, yeah, there are indeed 38 odd. Is that material? Now we need to understand more why is that, and some of it is because the role appointment is no for some of these, but we need to think about some other reasons as well. So I think that takes account of 1, 2, 3, about 6, 7 odd, 6 odd. So then there's about sort of 32, 33 odd that we also need to think about as to why. I need to understand why they are being archived, and is that a blocker for the bit large HR ingest, or do we resolve these later and ingest later? It's not a material stopper at 38 people. I looked at a couple of these departments, looked at the mate department. So it was not a department issue stopping this eligibility of Worktribe. It was something else, but we need to get to the bottom of that. But it's just an open point that we have 38 people who are currently being archived. Okay, so that's our point on being archived. Let's go over to our next one now. So a bit more material. So does the number of people, so when we're talking about number of people, let me go to the main BIP report here and just plonk myself onto this column for SID. And we can see that the number in total is 7266 if I don't take the top row, so 7266. So when we say the number, that's the number we're going against. That's the number of the people that are being ingested or candidates for ingestion, depending on whether they're being archived or not, because this includes archive and non-archive. So if I come over to my point here, 403 have no spine value. So if they don't have a spine value, they're not going to be ingested. So let's come over to point number 12 then. So we see point number 12 here, and we see empty spine. So column Q, filtering on that for blanks, shows us what we have here, and we have 403 people with no spine value. So what's the expected behavior for these people? Should they have a spine? And what should that value be? And no spine, there's going to be no ingest into Worktribe. So this would need a little bit more analysis to understand why. So that brings us to the end of this explanation for some points over here. They were green, they're now pink. These were our points for consideration before we do an ingest into Worktribe. Just thinking about some of the data in the BIP report and the materiality of it, or the correctness, the not correctness, what we can put up with, what we can't put up with, that allow us to come to a more confident decision of, should I ingest people into Worktribe TEST4 from the Fusion Dev3 environment? Yes or no? Do we need to consider this? And are there some other considerations from other lookups that haven't been looked at yet that we hopefully will swing round to in the next coming days? Okay, if you got this far, thanks for hanging in there. See you in the next video.